Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates. Hello everyone and welcome to the weekly edition of Daily News Simplified, where we take up the entire week long of Indian Express Explained section as well as the Sunday edition of the Hindu newspaper. Articles which have been taken up for today's discussion are listed on your screen, and the timestamping for these articles is already given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day. This article of the Indian Express Explained section appeared on 18th of July and talks about the upcoming Vice President election in India. Now, as you must have been aware that President of India has recently been elected. So Draupadi Murmu will going to be the next President of India. Meanwhile, government is also planning to conduct the election for the Vice President candidate in the next month. The context of the article talks about the detailed analysis of how the Vice President in India is elected. Now, before the election, of course, the important candidates are to be named. In the same manner, the opposition parties have combinedly named the former governor and the former Union Minister Margaret Alva as the candidate for the post of Vice Presidentship. On the other hand, the ruling National Democratic Alliance has announced the West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar to be their candidate for the same post. Elections are scheduled to be conducted on 6th of August by Election Commission of India, the responsible and the constitutional body in this regard. As far as syllabus mapping is concerned, so the President, Vice President and other important executive and the constitutional posts are important from the perspective of the prelim examination, where they can ask questions with respect to the different constitutional provisions. As far as mains examination is concerned, so in your General Studies paper 2, structure, organization and functions of the executive both at center and the state is important. And Vice President is a very important post with respect to the executive in the country. Now, these are the three important articles which are extremely important from the perspective of Vice President. Article 63 of the Constitution states that there shall be a Vice President of India. So, the recognition of the post to the Vice President is there in the Article 63 itself. And here, Vice President is not called with the name of Chairperson or Chairman to the Rajya Sabha. Article 64, on the other hand, calls that Vice President shall be ex officio Chairman of the Council of State or Rajya Sabha. Ex officio here simply means by the virtue of. So a person who is holding a very high constitutional post of Vice Presidentship, from the virtue of the post that this person is holding, and as Vice President is elected by the representation from across the country, he becomes an ex officio chairperson to that part or that house of the Indian Parliament where states are represented. That is the reason why this post is also acting as an ex officio chairman to the Council of States or Rajya Sabha. Article 65 calls that Vice President shall act as the President of India if the President is absent, dead, removed by the Parliament, resigned, fall ill or otherwise. So as far as constitutional provisions are concerned, today we are going to look them in much detail, but these provisions will be with respect to the election of the President. For more, you should refer to the static syllabus in your concerned textbook. So in this slide, we'll look into the different aspects of the office of Vice President and the election to this post. As far as office of Vice President is concerned, it is the second highest constitutional office after the office of the President. In order of preference, that is how the Indian government has the precedence of different constitutional, non-constitutional posts, Vice President ranks second. Whenever the person is elected to the post of vice president, that person takes the affirmation and oath to the President of India, and when that person wants to resign from that particular post, the same is handed over to the President. The basic duration of the Vice President is 5-year term, which may end in case of resignation, death or removal. As far as removal of Vice President is concerned, he or she is removed by the resolution of the Rajya Sabha, in which only Rajya Sabha is supposed to take the decision and pass that resolution. This resolution is passed as well as introduced only in Rajya Sabha. This is a very important point, so do not miss on that. After the introduction of the resolution, majority principle takes place. That is, this majority should have all the members and not only those which are present and voting. After the passage of this resolution, the passage should be agreed by Lok Sabha. As far as qualification is concerned, the person should be citizen of India. He or she should be the minimum age of 35 years. They should be qualified to be a member of Rajya Sabha. That is all the important basic qualification to be a member of parliament to Rajya Sabha should be met, and they should not be holding any office of profit apart from being a member or maybe holding any constitutional post. But if they are holding any constitutional post, for example, the candidate which has been selected by the ruling party, that is the West Bengal governor, he will leave or resign from the governorship the moment he or she is elected as the vice president. He or she cannot hold both the offices simultaneously. When we talk about the vacancy, so a vacancy to the office of vice president can occur when there is a completion of 5 years tenure, when he or she is removed by the resolution of the Rajya Sabha agreed by Lok Sabha, when he or she resigns from the post, there is death of the candidate, or when there is a declaration that the election to the vice president was null and void. In this case, the role of Supreme Court is important. Now coming to the important theme which is also part of the election or in this article. As far as election of vice president is concerned, so it is part of your Article 66 of the Indian Constitution. Under this, the means of electing the vice president is the indirect mean. So, the citizen of India will not vote directly, as what we see in the case of President of India, where an electoral college was appointed to elect the president. And this electoral college was represented by the majority representation of Indian people. The same is applicable in the case of vice president. So here also we'll have a separate electoral college which is responsible to provide the voting and election of the vice president. However, there is a case difference. The composition of the electoral college of vice president and president is different. As president is responsible for both houses of the parliament and he is the highest constitutional post in India, the member of legislative assemblies or MLA are also responsible and are part of the electoral college in case of president. However, they are not in case of vice president. In case of vice president, only the member of parliament from both houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, are going to vote. But there is a separate thing. Here, both elected and nominated member are going to vote. In the case of president, nominated member do not vote. As far as type of election is concerned, so it is same as that of the president. Here also we have the system of proportional representation. So every member of parliament will be representing a proportion of population from their respective constituency in their respective state. It is not the case that every member of parliament will represent only one vote. They will represent numerous votes, and that is the reason why they are representing the Indian people in terms of proportion. Their vote will be the single transferable vote, and this is done through the secret ballot system. Now the question is, what is system of proportional representation or SPR? In this system, elector, that is the member of parliament, will mark their preferences to all the candidates which are listed on the ballot paper against their names. Every person who is contesting for the post of vice president requires that 20 proposers and 20 seconders should sign in their support for the contesting election. A single person can contest multiple times to become the vice president, as you have seen in the case of ex-Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari. All the doubts, disputes with respect to the vice president election should be undertaken only in the Supreme Court, and other high courts or the local judiciary or the subsidiary or the subordinate court are not having any power in this regard. If the electoral college is small, let's say the number of member of parliament is small, even in that case, no one can challenge that election should not be conducted. In this case also, the elections will be conducted. Let's say out of 250 Rajya Sabha member, only 150 were present to vote. In this case, election will not be cancelled. Now, coming to the important point. When and how vice president can act as president? The vice president can act as the president only when the president is unable to do the normal business owing to his absence or illness. Now, absence could be for any reason. Absence could be because of his removal. Absence could be because of his foreign visit. This absence could be because of his resignation. But the point is, if the president has completed 5 years of his tenure, in that case, vice president will not be created or will not be held to the position of president to take the responsibility. When vice president is acting as the president, all the powers which are enjoyed by the president will be handed over to the vice president. All powers and immunities will be exercised by him. All the benefits incurred to the president will be handed over to the vice president also. Now, with this important discussion, these are the important 3 prelims related questions and 1 important mains related practice question. Now, what you can do is, you can pause the video right now and go through these 3 important questions that we are going to discuss. So let's talk about the first question. In which of the following condition vice president can act as president? The first option is death of the president. As we have said, yes. When a president is removed before the completion of term, yes. Illness of the president, yes. And resignation of the president, yes. In all the 4 cases, hence your option will be answer D. Now coming to the next question. Consider the following statements. Vice President of India is elected in the same manner as President is elected. This option is correct because both of them are elected through the system of proportional representation. Electoral college to Vice President is same as that of the President's electoral college. The option is wrong. And from that manner, the answer would be option A. Coming to the third answer. This is the question which was asked by the UPSC in 2013. The first statement says that chairman and the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha are not the member of that house. The statement remains incorrect because chairman is not the member of the house, as we have discussed. Vice president is the chairman of Rajya Sabha, but the deputy chairman is the member of the house. The option second says that while the nominated member of the 2 houses of the parliament have no voting right in the presidential election, they have the right to vote in the election of the vice president. Now I am leaving this to you. Go through the question and find out whether nominated member vote to the president or not, or whether they vote to the vice president or not, and identify the correct answer from the given option and do comment in the chat box. As far as mains practice question is concerned, it says discuss the mode of election to the office of vice president. The entire options that we have discussed previously, you have to talk about Article 65 as well as 66 in this regard. Why, according to you, government does not conduct direct election to the office of vice president. The first and the foremost reason being that when government create a similar kind of direct election provision for different constitutional posts, it will create the issue of conflict of interest, plus it will also add extra expenditure to the finances of the government. The rest option should be brought by you in the answer in about 150 words. With this discussion, please, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Indian Express Explains section appeared on 20th of July and talks about the relevance of excessive depreciation which is going on in India, that is the depreciation of rupee with respect to the dollar, especially the US dollar. The context says that rupee has already crossed the 80 rupee per dollar benchmark before recovering to the 79.90. Now the question is, why is the exchange rate in India is falling extremely, and what are the basic implications at the time of high inflation and low growth rate in India? After the entire discussion of this article, you will be in a position to answer these two questions. The first one is from the UPSC's 2019 GS paper 1 itself, and the second one is the practice question from Rao's IAS. So you will be in a position to answer both these questions. You can pause the video, go through this question, and after the discussion you can solve both of them. As far as syllabus mapping is concerned, so the exchange rate are important for your prelim examination as they form a part of economic development. From the perspective of means examination, they are important in your general studies paper 3 under the effect of liberalization on Indian economy. Now, as you can see, we have a sketch diagram which talks about the determination of exchange rate. But before that, we will look into what currency depreciation actually means. The currency depreciation, which is not a deliberate function, is the decline of, because depreciation means decline, appreciation means rise. So decline of currency's value relative to the another currency. It does not mean that the rupee is now 80 per dollar means rupee is now cheaper. It is cheaper with respect to the relation to other currencies. And in this case, it is with dollar. That does not mean that Indian currency is now depreciating with every currency in the world. As dollar is the highest exchange currency in India, dollar is the currency which is highest used or highest weightage currency in India's external trade. That is the reason why dollar becomes an important component for exchange rate determination and India's economic growth. Now, the decline of Indian rupees value with respect to the another currency, in this case dollar, is known as currency depreciation. It is specific to the system of floating exchange rate. Floating exchange rate simply means a system where currency is determined by the foreign exchange market, that is a market where a currency is supplied and currency is demanded by different stakeholders. It may be a bank, it may be a trader, it may be a government. When these important institutions demand and supply a particular currency in a market, that market is known as foreign exchange, and this process is known as floating exchange rate. Floating exchange rate goes against the fixed exchange rate, where the currency's value with respect to the foreign currency is determined by the central bank, which remains fixed, or is determined by the central government and remains fixed. Now, as you can see in this diagram, we have the foreign exchange market. Currently, we are at the higher position. We are at the position which is on the top. In this case, the supply of dollar and the demand of dollar has very wide gap and there is deficient demand. So the people are not demanding the dollar as what is being supplied in the market. So the demand of dollar, as you can see in the below axis or on the x axis, we have dollar. On the y axis, we have rupee exchange rate. As the demand of dollar is less, the supply is high, This deficiency has created a situation where the value of rupee is depreciating. As you can see, it has increased from hypothetical 68 to 75. In the reverse case, where the demand of dollar is high with respect to the supply of dollar, in that case, rupee will remain appreciating. Now, what are the effects of devaluation or depreciation? Devaluation is the falling value of the domestic currency, but devaluation is a deliberate step. Depreciation is based on the market forces. Now, when a currency is depreciated, the imports become expensive. When imports become expensive, we are less likely to import more. So, the value of import will fall down. On the other hand, the exports become cheaper because now Indian products outside India, let's say in United States, will be cheaper. The people who are buying Indian products in the US will find that their products are now cheaper. So that will lead to the export of more of Indian goods. So imports are now falling, exports are now rising. And out of these two effects, current account on the balance of payment, which includes the tangible assets, will improve. Because export is now more than import. But there's a condition. Such conditions normally do not apply to India because in India, the value of import is far more than the value of export. Hence, despite the depreciation, we are not in a position to reduce down the import vis-a-vis the export. The another effect of high rise of export is that we are going to earn more money. So now we are exporting more to US. So what will happen? The aggregate demand of India will rise because income is rising in India. And also we are going through the expensive imports. Let's say we are having high expensive oil imports. So oil imports are high. Indian income is also increasing because of the export. Both of them actually lead to the inflation, which is India's current situation. So what we are doing? We are importing inflation. In the below chart, also mentioned in the article itself, you can see that India's depreciation trend has seen a quite ups and downs in the last 14 years. The first major setback was seen in the case of global financial crisis in 2008 and 9. The second was in the case of Eurozone crisis in the PIGS countries. Then we have taper tantrum issue. Then we have the coronavirus outbreak, and now we are going through the issue of Russian-Ukraine conflict and the US Fed Reserve interest rate hike. So whenever the international impacts have been there, Indian currency has depreciated a lot. Overall, if we see, we'll find that the upward trend of the currency depreciation is taking place as India is one of the high importing nation. In last couple of years, Indian rupee has been more resilient vis-a-vis the other currencies. So please remember that the depreciation which we are observing in India is not the same which other countries are observing. So Indian currency is far more resilient compared to the other countries' currency in the world. Rupee is far more stronger as of now than what it was in 2008 and 2013. As you can see that the fluctuation on this diagram can easily be reduced. So the fluctuation now from the baseline, that is the long-term line, is small what it was in the previous decade. Rupee has become more stronger against the international currencies. Historically, rupee has depreciated around 3 to 3.5% in a year, which is far better than the other currency. Now, after going through the entire discussion on cause and effect relations, important trends of Indian currency depreciation, now we are in a position to look into who is a winner and who is a loser when a currency depreciates. So, the winners are exporters because they can export more. Domestic tourist industry because more tourists will come to India. We will gain more dollars. More dollar means more rupee in hand. Workers gaining jobs in the export industry. So when exports increase, the export companies will increase and they will hire more people. There will be economic growth in the country, but it depends on how much imports and exports are there in the current account. And also the current account deficit will definitely improve. On the other hand, the people who are buying from outside, that is the people who are importing, will lose. They now have to pay more rupee to buy every product. The residents who are going on holidays abroad will definitely lose. The firms who buy the imported raw material, especially the oil or the gold, those who have fixed income or the wages, will find inflation to be more harsher. And the foreign exporters and the tourist industry will face the burden. Foreign exporter here simply means the people who are living in US and sending their product to India. So for India, they are the exporters. So they will lose. So after this discussion, we will also look into what government should do. As you can see from this table, which is also part of the discussion and also the article, you can easily see that because of the depreciation, what we are seeing, that in previous financial year, the overall balance of payment or the deficit on current account was $38 billion, which has increased to minus $120 billion now. So current account deficit has increased. That is the reason why I was telling that in India, exports increase, no doubt, but import increase gigantically or exponentially. That is the reason why whenever there is depreciation of Indian currency, we have to face high current account deficit. On the other hand, the one thing which we observe is that when currency depreciate too much, as you can see, the invisible surpluses, the remittances, transfer payments which are coming to India increases. So remittances, as you have seen recently, RBI report has also submitted that remittances has increased in the past few years. What RBI should do? Should RBI intervene by selling the foreign exchange in the market, supplying more dollar in the market to create hypothetical demand? The answer would be no. Why? Because if RBI try to intervene in the foreign exchange market by selling dollars, it will exhaust India's foreign exchange, the exchange which is required to pay for India's import. So what government should do and what RBI should do? RBI should focus more on controlling the inflation which is hampering the middle class and the poor class in the country. Government, on the other hand, should contain its borrowing system and try to keep the fiscal deficit as low as possible. Both these things will reduce down the rupee in the market and will create more stable situation in the foreign exchange market. With this discussion, now we come to these two important questions, and I leave it to you to discuss the first question, that is the UPSC. And as far as second question is concerned, let's discuss that. Which of the following are the consequences of currency depreciation? Higher export of Indian cars? Yes, we will export more. Possible increase in income growth? Yes, because we are earning more from the exports. Improvement in the current account? Yes, it can take place. And more external borrowing by the government? No. Government will not borrow more from outside because borrowing from outside is now expensive. When currency depreciates, we do not borrow from outside because it's a lose-lose situation for every party in the country. With that discussion, your answer would be option A. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Indian Express Explained section appeared on 21st of July and talks about the rising heat wave incidents in Europe and the harmful effect of these heat waves. Now, the extraordinary hot summer was observed recently. Britain recorded a high temperature of 40 degrees Celsius, which is one of the highest at any place ever recorded in the recent history. Last month also in France, there was a high temperature of 45 degrees Celsius, which is almost equivalent to what is observed in the state of Rajasthan in India. So, from the perspective of the examination, we should have the basic geographical understanding of what actually is happening in Europe with respect to the high heat waves. As far as syllabus is concerned, so heat waves are part of your environmental issues and the issue of climate change. The same can also be asked with respect to the geographical concept in the prelim examination. Now, what are the basic reasons behind such heat waves? As far as global factors are concerned, so first, according to NASA's analysis, in the last 8 years, hottest ever temperature were recorded at the global level if we compare it with what happened in 1880s, that is almost 140 years back. Then the second reason would be that the climate change has now become prolonged and a long-term issue due to the emission of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide. The third is the existence and the extensive deforestation taking place in Europe in the pretext of development, and the melting of ice caps in the Arctic region has led to the falling albedo of the ice. Falling albedo means more absorption of this insolation, thereby creating higher temperature and low pressure. As far as regional factors are concerned, which are regional with respect to the Europe or the area around, such as Mediterranean Sea or the North Atlantic Ocean. The first one would be that due to the high temperature, as you must know that high temperature creates low pressure. So low pressure has been generated in and around Europe, especially during the northern summer. So when sun moves toward the Tropic of Cancer, there is summer solstice and the northern hemisphere goes through the phase of summers. In the same phase, there is a low pressure which is created in Europe. This low pressure actually attracts the warm air or the hot air from the northern Africa, which is mostly a desert area. So as we see that low pressure attracts winds from high pressure area, which is in Africa. So in Africa, we have high pressure and low temperature. So from high pressure to low pressure, the winds are moving, and because of the moving of these winds, the temperature in the southern Europe as well as the western Europe has increased drastically. The another reason is that there is an unusual warming of the Arctic Ocean water. This is because of the high heat, increased insolation, falling albedo, warm water coming from the ocean currents in the northern part. So all these 6 reasons have combined together to create a high heat waves in the European section, which has now creating many consequences, which includes the rising of the incoming moisture from Atlantic. So the wind which is now coming from the Atlantic has more moisture that will create or trigger the thunderstorms in the European areas, heavy precipitation in parts of United Kingdom. And the last one, high heat will definitely lead to the heat strokes among human beings, will also impact the biosystem or the biosphere. If we go through the important map, as you can see, this is the potential area which is now receiving the impact of heat waves. The reason being that this is the area which is now receiving the hot waves coming from North Africa, and these hot waves are coming to the low pressure gradient in Europe. Now, after understanding the entire concept, I am going to leave you with this practice question. So read this question carefully and try to answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 6th and talks about recent initiative taken by the government of Rajasthan to give the industry tag to the tourism in the state. The context is that the original announcement was made in the 2022-23 budget of Rajasthan, where the tourism and the hospitality sector was granted the industry status. The other initiatives which were created during the same were that state's film tourism policy 2022 was announced, because Rajasthan is one of the states where number of Bollywood movies have been shot. Apart from this, the Rajasthan government has also taken the initiative to sign a memorandum of understanding with the UNESCO on creating more intangible cultural heritage in the state. Now, the point is, from the UPSC's examination perspective, what is industry status? The term industry status has not been defined specifically in any of the law in India. So please be aware of that. Secondly, the status simply means that a particular sector will be included in a particular state's or central's industrial policy. So when we are saying that tourism will now be part of industry in Rajasthan, which simply means that in future, whenever Rajasthan will create any industrial policy, will all automatically include the tourism sector, or the policies which have been created, the formulations which have been created in the past with respect to the industrial sector will now be applicable to the tourism also. The same thing was awarded by the state of Uttar Pradesh to the warehousing and the logistics sector. The state of Manipur has already accorded the same status of industry to the sector of sports. Now, what are the basic benefits? Why Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Manipur are giving such status to these sectors? The first thing is that if such sectors are brought in the important industrial segment, they would get the benefit in the fall of electricity tariff, because industries are provided lower electricity tariff. They will also get the benefits of MSME. They will have better tax policies. So service sector is taxed more, industrial sector is taxed less. They will have special schemes, subsidies based on their specific demands and requirements. They will have benefit of legal and procedural benefits such as capital and interest subsidy will now be available to the tourist destinations. They will have single window fast clearance for setting up the, let's say, hotels, restaurants. They will have far better licenses. They will have more exemptions, relaxations from the stamp duty, tariffs and other duties. Let's say there's a restaurant which wants to import a very fancy, let's say, a chandelier from outside India. So they will get some benefits on the tariffs as well. Now they will be in a position to refinance their important establishments such as hotels, restaurants, which were under debt. So they are now in the industrial category. They will have far better provisions to finance their projects. They will also get easy facilities on foreign direct investment, and they will be now more organized and can follow better regulatory provisions. Now, with respect to the Rajasthan, as you can see, these are the following benefits which they have provided. Now, where we can use this program? We can use this program in your General Studies Paper 3 with respect to the important case studies on economic development. So you can quote such examples to substantiate that providing the industrial tech to a particular sector will definitely benefit that specific sector. So in this case, how tourism sector will benefit? They will have better priced electricity. They will now be paying the urban development tax instead of commercial tax. They will benefit through capital subsidy. They will get a special rebate. They will get exemption on the stamp duty. They will get employment subsidy, investment subsidies, and others under the Rajasthan Investment Promotion Scheme. Even the filmmakers who are coming to Rajasthan to shoot their film will now get a subsidy up to 2 crore rupees. The same is applicable to the guest house, homestays and others. It simply means that providing such an industrial tag to the tourism sector in the state of Rajasthan is a win-win situation and has been welcomed by the different stakeholders across the state. With this discussion, please let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 1st and talks about the protest and talks about the issue where some of the khadi workers or the workers who were building or the workers who were involved in creating khadi flags for India have lodged protest. The context says that government has recently amended the Flag Code of India, which was created in 2002 and allowed the national flag, which can be now made using the polyester and other machine-made fabric apart from the traditional hand-spun, hand-woven khadi. So previously it was just khadi which was used for the creation of Indian national flag, but apart from khadi now, polyester and other machine-made fabric can be used. Now, as far as syllabus is concerned, so this topic is mostly associated with your prelim examination where flag code related questions could be asked. Now, why government has taken such a decision? Government is saying that this would change the national flag affordability because once we are making flag using a machine, it will be more affordable for the people, because government is trying to make their one of the program of Har Ghar Tiranga to be more successful. Government want people to install Indian flag in their households as far as possible. Now the point is why it has been made as an issue. The companies or the small scale industry, especially involved in the khadi sector, are saying that such kind of initiative will ruin down their industrial setup. This will keep them comparatively at disadvantage to those companies which are utilizing the same using the machines. So very famous multinational brands such as Raymond, such as CRM, or any other company which is manufacturing the cloth using a machine can now enter in this segment and can reduce down the employment generation of khadi flag makers. The second thing is that the age-old tradition that India had with respect to the connection of khadi and India's independence movement will now be torn apart. The third one is that the moment we say that yes, such kind of things are brought into practice, no wonder that countries like China will begin exporting such kind of flags in India. So you can imagine the Indian flag built for India by China. That brings us to an important issue that was highlighted in the article. Now, from the perspective of UPSC examination, apart from the basic issue, we should also have the understanding of what is Flag Code of India. This code was brought to public on 26th of January 2002 when all laws, conventions, practices and instructions with respect to Indian flag were combined together. According to this flag code, the display of national flag is regulated in private, public and government institutions. After the Supreme Court's judgment, Clause 2 in the flag code puts no restrictions on the display of national flag as far as it is consistent with the dignity and honor. So if you are showing the dignity and the honor to the national flag, you have no restrictions in displaying the flag at your own private space. The original Flag Code of India was created in 1947. However, after the 2002 Supreme Court judgment, amendments were brought into it. So let's talk about the same in detail. The present flag that we are using, that is a tricolor, was based on the Swaraj flag, which was designed by one of the member of Indian National Congress, Pingali Venkaiah. Indian National Congress in its Karachi session of 1931 adopted the national flag to be the flag of India. The same was constitutionally recognized on July 22nd, 1947, that is before the enforcement of India's constitution. As far as constitutional provisions are concerned, so hoisting of Indian national flag is not a fundamental right. However, it comes under the fundamental duty that is expected from the Indian citizen. So as per the fundamental duty 51A subclause A, to abide by the constitution and respect its ideals, institutions, national flag and national anthem, and that is one of the reasons which is expected from the Indian citizen to respect the Indian national flag. But if a person does not follow this duty, he or she is not going to be arrested. However, if they violate the national flag code, there might be the action against that person. In India, we have Ambulance and Names Act 1950 as well as the Prevention of Insult to National Honor Act 1971, protecting the dignity and honor of India's national flag. Now, these are the important facts associated with the Indian flag. It is made up of handspun, hand-woven, wool, cloth or silk khadi bunting. But now, polyester has also been added into the list. The shape of the flag is rectangular with 3:2 ratio. The flag cannot be flown in the half mast until and unless there is an order from the government. Flag cannot be used as a drapery on any dead body except for the state funeral. Flag shall not be used as a portion of somebody's costume, uniform, or otherwise. So these are the important things that should be kept in mind while following the important preparation for your UPSC exam. With this discussion place, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article was appeared on page 8 of the Delhi edition Hindu newspaper, but there was no explanation given to this article. However, it was just given as an image which tells us about the practice of terrace farming in the state of Meghalaya. Now, from the perspective of UPSC, it is important for you to go through the important static syllabus. And in this static syllabus, we are talking about the geographical concepts. In geographical concept, we are specifically talking about the crop and farming. Now, UPSC has been asking questions with respect to various crops, farming practices and systems in the country. So, continuing the same trend, we are going to discuss about the terrace farming, how it is being practiced, what are the benefits of terrace farming, and what are the basic limitations, followed by an important prelims and mains related question. The concept of terrace farming is that it is a method of farming whereby steps like, as you can see, these are the various steps. Now the natural slope may be like this, and they create the artificial steps on the natural slope. Now these steps are known as terraces, and they are built onto the slopes of a particular hill or a mountain, and the steps are used for the specific crop cultivation. Every step has an outlet where if the excess water is being collected, it will be channelized to the next step downslope. It is mostly practiced in Asia, especially in the rice growing countries including India. It requires a good rainfall because it is useless to create steps if there is no water. Because on the hilltop, we cannot bring the water through irrigation method. It is only through the rainfall that brings the water. Hence, requirement of good rainfall is necessary. That is one of the reasons why such kind of practices are not seen in the case of Rajasthan despite the presence of Aravalli hills. Now the reason is, why do we create terrace farming? The basic purpose is to prevent the washing away of important soil nutrients during the rainfall down the slope and also prevent the healthy crops. As far as types of terrace farming are concerned, they are of two types: gradient terracing and the level tracing. And in gradient tracing, we have either the constant or the variable grades. For instance, we can have a gradient like this, or we have a gradient which is constant. Again, then we have a small gradient, then again the constant. On the other hand, in the level traces, we are following the contour lines and are best suited for permeable soils. Now coming to the important benefits of terrace farming. Terrace farming is although a bit labor intensive because creating such kind of steps on the slope of a hill is not an easy task. But it provides the maximum utilization of arable land and reduces the soil erosion. What kind of soil erosion does it reduce? It reduces the rill and the sheet soil erosion. It prevents the nutrient of a soil and prevent them from passing to the next level below or in the valley system. They also prevent the free flowing of the avalanche of water down the slope to destroy the crops in the valley. So if there is a rainfall in the top of the hill, such terraces will prevent the water going in a flood manner to destroy the crop down the slope. So these terraces also prevent the flooding of water. They also benefit the tribal community as well as the hill area community to get the food security, which would have not been possible because these people stay in a remote areas which are not easily accessible as far as food distribution is concerned. This practice of farming can easily transform the moist and unused land into the productive field. So previously we have a hilly area which was not at all cultivated. It was lying idle. Now that hill area is providing food to the people. Now coming to the limitations. The first limitation is that there is overflow of the water during the rainy season, which is very tough to capture. It might also lead to the mudslides if it is not managed well. There is a high input of labor which increases the cost and requires very high level of maintenance. It is a problematic situation if the population is not very high, or if that particular area is going through the falling of the population. This practice may not sustain for long. And the last one is too much presence of water can reduce the soil quality through the leaching process, because excess of water is also not good for cultivation. With this discussion, now I leave you with this prelims related question to discuss, in which we have already highlighted the important links and hints for you to answer. In the mains question, you have to evaluate the practice of terrace farming in India with special focus given towards the soil conservation. This question has been asked with respect to GS paper 1. With this discussion, let us now move to the last article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 10 and talks about the important disease known by the name cholera. Now, cholera has also been mentioned in your NCERT books, the causes, the impact, the symptoms. However, in this article, they also talk about the important research in the cholera. Now, from the perspective of the UPSC examination, that detail of research is not at all required. So, from that perspective, we will look into the prelims related pointers from this article and nothing else. And that should be your strategy to identify what you have to read from a particular article and what you have to miss out. Now, let's talk about cholera. Cholera is an acute diarrheal illness that impacts the intestine of a person. It is caused by the Vibrio cholerae bacteria. So yes, it is a bacterial disease, hence would require antibacterial or antibiotic treatment. Means through which it occurs is when a person swallow a food or water which is contaminated with the cholera bacteria. Mostly it is the case of water which spread this bacteria. The symptoms includes the watery diarrhea, sometimes which is also described as the rice water stool. And because of this, there is excessive loss of water from the body. There is vomiting, thirst because of the excess discharge of the water. There is a leg cramps. Same happens because of the less of water. Restlessness, irritation, as well as an extreme form of dehydration. All of these are because of the excessive loss of fluids from the body. So what is the basic cure? The basic cure include, of course, the process of rehydration, giving the fluids and the antibiotic. There is also the availability of inactivated oral vaccine for the disease, which includes the Dukoral, Shankol and Avicol type of vaccines. You are not required to remember these names, but just remember that yes, for cholera, we have inactivated oral vaccines available. So what you have to remember from this article, the first thing, that what kind of disease is this, how it is caused, whether it is a viral or a bacterial, what are the means, symptoms, and whether there is a cure available or not. Apart from this, nothing would be required from the given article that was published in the newspaper. With this discussion placed, now we come to the last part of today's Daily News Simplified, that is question of the day. The answer to yesterday's question of the day, that is which of the following tribes are part of Sarna tradition in Jharkhand, includes Ho, Santal and Munda. So all of the three above are correct. Today's question of the day is based on the discussion that we have conducted with respect to the Indian national flag. The question says, consider the following statement. Indian national flag was adopted by the Constitutional Assembly on 26th of January 1950. The Constitution laid down rights on Indian citizen to host the Indian national flag. Current color scheme of Indian national flag was adopted in Karachi session of Indian National Congress. So you have to identify the correct statement and do comment in the comment box. That's all for today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you.